very much. And again, thank you, Justice Strategies. I just want Judy Green, if you can just stand so people can put a face to the name. And of course, Pat Allard. Justice Strategies just came out with a riveting report, Children on the Outside, 2014 Proposals for Change. And we really thank you for all of your great work in this field and in this area. I'm going to proffer a couple of questions, one question actually, to each of the panelists, and then open it up for you all so that we can share in the collective dialogue. You know, through long sentences or long distance incarceration away from families, it really has been very, very difficult for families to stay connected. I heard of one case in Arizona where the state prison there charges a $25 fee for first-time visitors. When I saw that, I said, how can that be, you know, possible? All of these obstacles put in the way with respect to maintaining those bonds, maintaining that connection. Glenn, I want to proffer the first question to you. You spoke of your two sons, Chad, who's age 24, and Joshua, who's 3 and a half. Since you've been home for prison for 13 years and able to raise Joshua without the barriers that you found associated when you were in prison with Chad, can you speak based on your personal experience about the differences in those relationships as it pertains to today's discussion?
Sure. So as I sort of alluded to earlier, the relationship not only with Chad but with his mother was significantly damaged while I was in prison, right? So some of it was the distance, which I mentioned. The distance created a situation where, again, I made the decision that it probably was best for them not to visit as often as they might have liked, because I understood what the hardship was like, both financial, time, and so on, to visit me. And then kicked in, you know, the child support issue, right? The stuff that comes out of the Responsibility Act that we passed that created huge amounts of child support arrears for people who are in prison. That's usually based on having nothing to do with the amount of income a person has or is making while they're in prison. There's no correlation usually between the accumulation of those arrears and the amount of money people are earning in prison. Most people, I think, in the federal system earn between 20 and 40 cents an hour. But many of the clients we saw when I was at the Fortune Society would come home with, like me, with owing $40,000, $50,000, some as much as $100,000 in child support arrears. And in many states, in most states, incarceration is viewed as willful unemployment, and there's nothing they can do about those arrears. In fact, that was my situation, where even when the judge recognized that the accumulation of the arrears had a lot to do with just the system being on autopilot, because there's a case in New York called Knight versus Knight, he had no discretion to reduce the arrears at all. And so imagine that, right? So I'm making $16,000 a year, I want to get to know my child, I'm under the impression that his mother had something to do with the accumulation of these arrears, or at the very least she didn't have anything to do with trying to stop it from accumulating. And so that's just one example, but yet a concrete example of how the system actually serves to break up families and create fissures between families. And so we've never been able to really mend from that. So Joshua, for instance, I mean, anyone, again, who knows me now or is even connected to my social media understands that every sort of waking moment that I'm not working at Just Leadership, I'm hanging out with Joshua, and that sort of bond, I'll never be able to capture with my oldest son. You just won't. Like the stuff I'm able to do with Joshua while he's growing up now is, you can't get that back, you know. And it wasn't just me. When I was on the inside, again, much of my motivation to do this work was a lot of the other men I met on the inside who were suffering from the inability to do some of this stuff also. And programs like the program run by Osborne and other organizations that give you a chance to play some role are important. But we all know that nothing beats avoiding the damage that's caused by prison and incarceration on families and individuals. So, yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you so much for sharing. Patricia Allard, the opportunity
Trisha, I love that.
I just wanted to give you all the names.
Let me put my jacket on.
And the opportunity for improvement that you presented appears to be very timely and desired by judges on the federal bench, obtaining pertinent facts about the defendant's family, allowing judges the discretion to make an appropriate sentencing determination depending on the individual circumstances of the case. Just how does this opportunity become a reality?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to look at incarceration has become the rule, and quite frankly, it should be the exception and not the rule. And so, obviously, the Sentencing Commission needs to abide by the Sentencing Reform Act, but there is an opportunity for Congress and the Sentencing Commission to come together and try to devise a different approach. And we already have examples. There's the safety valves that are already in place that are being further explored through the Smart Sentencing Act. Is another opportunity where we can look at the safety valve, specifically looking at what happens when you have a parent and what's going to be the impact on children. So the 3 steps that I provided, there is an opportunity to use that through a safety valve and go further. And judges are crying out for the ability to be able to look at all the facts and be able to assess, okay, this is a situation which does not require, or this is a situation that requires a family to be kept together, allow them to thrive, provide the support on the front end. We already have a lot of them on the back end. We see that reentry. Let's bring it to the front. Let's move it forward. That way we get a chance to not lose the children in the mix. Children deserve better. And Liz, I'm really glad you raised the Children's Convention, because it is shameful that the U.S. has not ratified that bill, that convention. And it is grand time. I was in Geneva last month, and the members from Africa, bless their hearts, they were just like, what is going on? The U.S. worked on this bill, on this convention. What is going on? The question's been posed. We need to pose the question as well. We need to find a safety valve, and let's keep the families together.
Great, thank you very much.